Welcome to Teolumen Insights, where we reveal the hidden forces that shape the way you live and show you how to use them to create real transformation and supercharge your health, mindset, and daily life. Here are your hosts, Emma Greenwood and Nathan Sinclair.
Welcome back to Teolumen Insights. Now today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the world of Jan Patočka, a Czech philosopher who really wrestled with some pretty massive questions, the human condition, history, even the nature of reality. And the thing is, his ideas, they feel incredibly relevant to us right now.
They do.
Even though he did most of his work before the internet as we know it even existed.
Right.
I'm Nathan Sinclair.
I'm Emma Greenwood. It's almost like Patočka was anticipating the kind of tech-driven world we live in, His work speaks directly to the challenges and the possibilities we face in the digital age.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the places this really jumps out is in his concept of the natural world.
Right.
Now, I know when we hear natural world, we might immediately think about trees and rivers.
Yeah.
But Patočka goes much deeper.
He certainly does. For Patočka, the natural world isn't just about the environment. It's the entire horizon of human experience.
Wow.
It's the backdrop against which we live and act and make sense of the world.
So if our natural world shapes how we experience life, does that mean our digital world with its global reach and instant connections has actually changed that backdrop?
That is a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
Think about it. The internet allows us to connect with people across the globe, to access information instantly, to shape and reshape our identities online.
Right.
Does this fundamentally alter the natural world that Patočka was describing, or are these just new expressions within the existing framework?
That's a great point. It's like Patočka gives us this lens for understanding human experience, and then the internet comes along and adds a whole new dimension to it.
Right.
And that leads us to another one of his fascinating ideas, the three movements of life.
Yeah.
He describes how our lives unfold in these interconnected phases. Anchoring, self-renouncing self-prolongation, and self-threatening self-acquisition.
Yeah. And he uses such striking language to capture these movements. Let's break them down. Anchoring is about finding our roots, our foundation. It's that sense of belonging we get from family culture.
Yeah.
Or even a shared ideology.
Right.
It's what grounds us.
Right. And then there's self-renouncing self-prolongation.
Yes.
This one sounds a bit intimidating.
Right.
But it's essentially about delaying gratification for a greater purpose.
Exactly.
Like dedicating years to building a career or raising a family, even though it means sacrificing some immediate pleasures.
Exactly. It's about investing in the future,
Right.
playing the long game.
Yeah.
And then we have self-threatening self-acquisition, which is perhaps the most challenging of the three. This movement involves pushing beyond our comfort zones to pursue something truly meaningful.
Wow.
Even if it means risking failure or facing our own limitations.
So like that moment when you decide to start a creative project knowing it might not succeed, or when you stand up for what you believe in, even when it's unpopular.
Precisely. Patočka suggests that true living requires us to constantly navigate these three movements. Okay.
Finding our roots, building for the future, and pushing ourselves beyond our limits. It's this dynamic interplay that shapes our lives.
It's interesting to think about where we each find ourselves in these movements at different points in our lives. I can definitely see how my current focus on this podcast fits into the self-renouncing self-prolongation phase. I'm pouring a lot of energy into something I believe in, hoping it'll have a positive impact down the line. What about you?
That's a question we should all ask ourselves regularly.
Yeah.
I think I tend to shift between the movements depending on what's happening in my life.
Yeah.
The key is to be aware of where we are in these movements.
Right.
As it can help us understand our motivations and our choices.
Absolutely. Now, another crucial element in Patočka's thinking is his engagement with the ideas of Plato, especially when it comes to the concepts of the soul, susha, and the pursuit of excellence, arpum.
Yeah, Patočka draws a fascinating distinction between the open soul and the closed soul.
The open soul is receptive to the world,
Right.
embracing its mysteries and complexities. It seeks understanding and connection.
While the closed soul is more focused on control and domination, seeking to impose its will on the world.
Exactly. And Patočka saw this closed soul mindset as particularly dangerous in our modern technoscientific world.
Right.
It can lead us to treat everything, nature, other people, even ourselves, as mere resources to be exploited for our own ends.
Like that temptation to reduce everything to data points and algorithms.
Right.
Forgetting the inherent worth and complexity of the world around us.
And this ties into another key concept, the idolum facti.
Okay.
Essentially, this is the tendency to mistake what is historically contingent or socially constructed for what is truly real and essential.
So like believing that technological progress is the only measure of human advancement.
Right.
Just because it's the dominant narrative in our current society.
Precisely, Patočka warns us against this kind of thinking,
Yeah.
this uncritical acceptance of prevailing trends and ideologies. He urges us to dig deeper, to question our assumptions, to find the real meaning and purpose beneath the surface of things.
He challenges us to look beyond the idolum facti and seek a more authentic understanding of ourselves and the world.
And to help us in that pursuit, Patočka suggests a method called phenomenological reduction.
Okay, that sounds a bit intimidating. Can you break that down for us?
Of course, phenomenological reduction isn't as complex as it sounds.
Okay.
It involves suspending our judgments, what Husserl, another philosopher Patočka drew from, called epicue, and returning to the things themselves as they appear in our experience.
So instead of approaching the world with preconceived notions, we try to see it with fresh eyes.
Right.
To experience things directly without the filter of our own biases and assumptions.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Patočka uses a rather intriguing example to illustrate this, the limp.
The limp, what does that have to do with philosophy?
Well, a limp disrupts the smooth flow of movement. It's an imperfection, something unexpected. And Patočka uses this as a metaphor for those experiences that shake us out of our comfortable assumptions.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's in the face of imperfection, uncertainty, or even pain that we can glimpse the most profound truths about ourselves and the world.
It's like those moments when something unexpected happens.
Yes.
And it forces us to reevaluate our entire perspective.
Yeah.
It throws us off balance, but opens us up to new possibilities.
Exactly. It's in those moments of disruption that we might be most receptive to genuine insight.
This is all incredibly fascinating. We've covered so much ground already. The natural world, the three movements of life, the open and closed soul, the idolum facti phenomenological reduction, even to philosophical limp.
And there's so much more to explore.
There is.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a quick break and come back for part 2, where we'll dive deeper into Patočka's critique of communism and his ideas about deep history.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah. So as we were delving into before, Patočka was deeply critical of communism, particularly its tendency to reduce human beings to mere economic units. You know, he saw this as a form of dehumanization, a stripping away of individual dignity and freedom.
And that really resonates with his critique of the idolum facti, doesn't it?
It does.
Communism, with its emphasis on material conditions and historical determinism, it seemed to create its own set of false idols.
Right.
It's like it mistook its own historical and political project
Yeah.
for the ultimate reality.
That's a very insightful connection.
Yeah.
Patočka argued that communism in many ways became blind to deeper truths about human existence. It prioritized material progress and societal structures over individual experience and the complexities of the human spirit.
It's interesting because this critique, while rooted in his experience with communism, can be applied to other aspects of modern life as well.
Right.
We often get so caught up in the pursuit of efficiency and technological progress that we forget about those essential human needs for connection, meaning, and purpose.
You're absolutely right. Patočka urges us to take a step back and question what we might be sacrificing in the name of progress. Are we losing sight of our humanity in this relentless drive for advancement?
It makes me think about how technology can sometimes disconnect us from ourselves and each other.
Yeah.
We become fixated on the digital world,
Yeah.
on achieving metrics and optimizing our online presence, and we lose touch with those deeper aspects of being human.
And that brings us back to Patočka's distinction between the open and closed soul.
Right.
Remember, the closed soul is fixated on control,
Yeah.
domination, and manipulation. It views everything as a means to an end, reducing even human beings to instruments in service of a larger agenda.
So in a sense, a system like communism, with its emphasis on collective goals and centralized control, could be seen as embodying a closed soul mentality.
That's a provocative thought, and it aligns with Patočka's concerns about the dangers of ideology. When we become too attached to a particular ideology, we risk closing ourselves off to alternative perspective, to the richness and complexity of lived experience.
It's that tendency to view the world through a narrow lens, to fit everything into a predetermined framework.
Exactly. And this brings us to another important point. Patočka's critique of Descartes and his famous separation of mind and body. Remember Descartes' cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am.
Yeah.
This statement places the thinking mind, the res cogens, at the center of reality while relegating the body, the res extensa, to a secondary status.
It's that classic mind-body split that has permeated Western thought for centuries.
Right. And this elevation of reason, what Descartes called the principium rationalis, as the primary tool for understanding the world, is precisely what Patočka was pushing back against.
Right.
He argued that there's more to human experience than just rational thought. We are not simply disembodied minds, we are embodied beings, and our bodies play a vital role in how we perceive and interact with the world.
So for Patočka, it's not just about, I think, therefore I am, but also, I feel, I sense, I experience, therefore I am.
That's a wonderful way to put it. He's emphasizing the fullness of human experience, the importance of embodiment and our connection to the world through our senses and emotions. And this leads us to another fascinating aspect of Patočka's thought. His concept of deep history.
Deep history. So now we're going way back in time.
Not necessarily. When Patočka speaks of deep history, he's not simply referring to a chronological timeline of events. He's talking about history as an unfolding of creative energies, a story of humanity grappling with fundamental questions about existence, meaning, and purpose.
I think he sees history as a living process, something that continues to shape us today.
Exactly. And for Patočka, this deep history is intertwined with the concept of ritual and what he calls the sacred.
Ritual, like ancient ceremonies and religious practices.
Yes, but it goes beyond that. Patočka was interested in how rituals, even in our secular age, can help us connect with those deeper dimensions of human experience. He was particularly drawn to the rituals of ancient Greek tragedy, which he saw as a way of accessing the sacred, those profound experiences of awe, wonder, and connection that often get lost in our modern world.
It's fascinating to think about how rituals, both ancient and modern, can provide us with a sense of meaning and purpose. Even in a tech-saturated world, we still crave those experiences that connect us to something larger than ourselves.
And Patočka reminds us that these experiences are available to us if we're willing to cultivate a certain openness, a willingness to engage with the world in a more mindful and receptive way. He uses the term ritual comportment to describe this attitude, this way of approaching life with a sense of reverence and awe.
Ritual comportment. I like that. It's like cultivating a mindset that allows us to see the extraordinary in the ordinary, to find meaning in the everyday moments of our lives.
You've captured it perfectly. And this in many ways connects to Patočka's concept of Bildung, which we touched on earlier.
Right, Bildung, that difficult to translate German word that encompasses a holistic approach to education.
Exactly. For Patočka, Bildung was about more than just acquiring knowledge or skills. It was about cultivating the whole person, fostering their character values and sense of purpose. It was about developing individuals who could think critically, engage meaningfully with the world, and contribute to a more just and humane society.
So it's not just about what we learn, but about who we become in the process of learning.
Precisely. And I think that's a crucial point, especially in a world where technology is rapidly changing the landscape of education and how we access information.
We need to ask ourselves, what kind of education will help us navigate the complexities of the 21st century? What kind of learning will foster those qualities of openness, critical thinking, and ethical awareness that Patočka believed were so essential?
It's a question we'll explore further in the final part of our deep dive.
I'm eager to hear more. We've covered so much ground already, but it feels like we're just scratching the surface of Patočka's thought.
There's always more to discover with Patočka. His ideas are like layers of an onion, revealing new insights and challenges with each peel.
You know, we've been unpacking some really powerful ideas from Jan Patočka.
Oh, yeah.
Everything from the natural world to deep history to the challenges of living in a tech-driven age. But to really grasp his work, we need to talk about the man himself. His life was anything but ordinary.
That's an understatement. Patočka lived through incredibly turbulent times, Born in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, witnessed the rise and fall of Czechoslovakia, experienced Nazi occupation, and ultimately lived under communist rule. It's almost as if his philosophy was forged in the crucible of these historical upheavals.
You can really feel that weight of history in his writing.
You can.
He was grappling with some of the most fundamental questions about freedom, responsibility, and the meaning of human existence, especially in the face of immense suffering.
And that's where his concept of asubjective phenomenology becomes so crucial. He was trying to move beyond a philosophy centered solely on the individual subjects, and instead focus on the very process of how things appear to us, how phenomena reveal themselves.
So instead of getting caught up in our own limited perspective, he was trying to access something more universal.
Yes.
A truth that transcended the particulars of time and place.
Precisely. It's like he was searching for a bedrock of meaning that could withstand the storms of history, the upheavals and uncertainties of the 20th century.
It's no surprise, then, that he became a leading figure in the Czech dissident movement.
Right.
Even signing Charter 77, which called for human rights and democratic reforms.
A truly courageous act, especially under a regime that sought to silence dissent. Sadly, this ultimately led to his tragic death following a lengthy interrogation by the secret police. His life was cut short, but his ideas continue to reverberate.
It makes you think about his concept of self-threatening self-acquisition and how he embodied that principle in his own life. He wasn't just theorizing about these ideas, he was living them, putting himself at risk for what he believed in. His life becomes a testament to the power of ideas.
Absolutely.
And the courage it takes to stand up for truth, even in the face of danger.
And his legacy is all the more powerful because of it. His ideas resonate deeply with us today, especially as we navigate a world grappling with similar challenges, from political polarization to the ethical dilemmas posed by emerging technologies.
So what does all of this mean for us, the listeners? What can we take away from this deep dive into Patočka's world?
I think Patočka's greatest gift is a call to awaken. To become more aware of the forces shaping our lives, to question the idols of our time, and to cultivate a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
He's urging us to embrace those moments of disruption, those limps that shake us out of our complacency and force us to confront the deeper truths of existence.
Exactly. It's about becoming more thoughtful, more critical, more engaged. It's about taking responsibility for our own lives and the future of our world. And it's about remembering that even in the darkest of times, there's always the possibility for hope, meaning, and transformation.
A powerful message, and one that feels incredibly relevant in our current moment. If this deep dive has piqued your interest, I encourage you to explore Patočka's work further. His writing is demanding.
It is.
But incredibly rewarding. You might be surprised at how much he has to say to us today.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Jan Patočka. Until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, and keep the conversation going. This has been Teolumen Insights.